Hello, welcome to my session on owning your soapbox moments. I'm presentation coach Catherine Shepherd, and I'll be starting my session with a monologue from St. Joan by George Bernard Shaw. And it's a bit left field why, you haven't come to a theatre to watch a great actress, or maybe you have, but just go with it because there's a reason. Just a teeny bit of context. So Joan of Arc has two choices. She can either spend the rest of her life in prison, in a cellar, not great, or she can be burned at the stake. So these are her choices. Light your fire. Do you think I dread it as much as the life of a rat in a hole? My voices were right. Yes. They told me not to listen to your fine words, nor trust your charity. You promised me my life, but you lied. You think that life is nothing but not being stone dead? 'Tis not the bread and water I fear. I can live on bread alone. When have I asked for more? 'Tis no hardship to drink water if the water be clean. Bread has no sorrow for me, and water no affliction. But to shut me from the light of the sky and the sight of the fields and flowers. To chain my feet so that I never again may climb the hills nor ride with the soldiers. To make me breathe foul, damp darkness, and keep me from everything that brings me back to the love of God, when your wickedness and foolishness tempt me to hate him. All this is worse than the furnace in the Bible that was heated 7 times. I could do without my war horse. I could drag about in a skirt. I could stand there and let the soldiers and the knights and the trumpets and the banners pass me and leave me behind as they do the other women. If only I could still hear the wind in the trees, the larks in the sunshine, the young lambs crying through the healthy frost, and the blessed, blessed church bells that send my angel voices to me floating on the wind. But without these things, I cannot live. And by your wanting to take them away from me, or from any human creature, I know that your counsel is of the devil, and that mine is of God. Well, that's quite a way to start something. Anyway, that was perhaps the ultimate soapbox moment. Choice between life and death. Someone willing to show who they are with courage and conviction to the very end. Now, if we think of soapboxes these days, perhaps we think of them in somewhat of a negative light. It's, Tom's on his soapbox again, as Tom rants enthusiastically about the joys of owning a pressure washer. Anyway, but soapbox moments, they originated from people of factories. They had soapboxes, things like this, that goods were shipped in, and they turned into the perfect impromptu stage for people to get up and talk about things that they felt passionate about. They were often political or religious, and they proved great entertainment for working people because they were free. I'm sure you've all heard of Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park, but that is one of the world's most famous spots for people getting on their soapbox and talking. So, in a modern-day context, let's think of soapbox moments as moments of passion. Okay? And good leadership is certainly passionate. So I'm about to play something for you of an incredibly passionate person. Have a little listen to this.
I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat. We have before us an ordeal of the most grievous kind. We have before us many, many long months of struggle and of suffering. You ask, what is our policy? I will say it is to wage war by sea, land, and air, with all our might, with all the strength that God can give us, to wage war against a monstrous tyranny never surpassed in the dark and lamentable catalogue of human crime. That is our policy. You ask, what is our aim? I can answer in one word: victory. Victory at all costs. Victory in spite of all terror. Victory however long and hard the road may be. But without victory there is no survival.
So, shout out. Who was that? Anyone?
Churchill.
Correct, it was Winston Churchill, voted the greatest Briton of all time. Sorry, Dale. Winston Churchill led our nation through one of the toughest and darkest times, but he had such an epic gift to inspire people. And it's funny, he was a terrific leader, but naturally he had a lot of qualities that should have worked against him. He wasn't a natural orator. He had a lisp, he drank a lot, he suffered really badly from depression. He also had a lot of career setbacks that would have finished the careers of many other people. But his unique ability to bring people together, to inspire them, was just absolutely remarkable. So, what do you think gets people to believe in your vision as a leader? It's about getting people's buy-in. If you don't have people's buy-in, then they're not going to go with you on the journey. They're not going to do the actions that will get them there. They're not going to believe in the direction that you're taking them. They're just not. So you need people's genuine buy-in, because skepticism kills momentum. And I think that good leaders really communicate with authenticity. They have clear and succinct messaging, and they present with passion. So I'm going to read a little poem I found on authenticity by a poet called Christopher Wallace. And I'd just like you to listen, and I think it's a really great way of getting at the core of what being authentic means. Just be real, friend. Be who you are and where you're at. That's enough, and it is the only way forward. Most of us have put on enough masks in our lifetime to have completely forgotten our original face. We've become far too clad with the heavy coats of expectation, suffocating under the weight of the ways we think we ought to be. You can drop that garb. There's always mystery at the naked core of who you are, and that's just fine. It's not that we must rediscover some definable self and hand that image over for validation. Rather, those solid definitions we cart around with us are heavy enough as it is, but we've continued pushing them despite the distress. We've gotten so used to that awkward play of needing to be a somebody, as if that somebody were other than who we already are. We've forgotten how to let go with all the spontaneity of a flower's growth, forgotten the beauty of our own personal bloom, that we are a fluid sweep of light and dark, that our faces, like the moon's, wax and wane. You don't have to be any which way other than the way you are. That sort of self-acceptance is the innate flourish, is the fluid self-cycle, is the way back into life. Don't fool yourself into believing there's a better disguise. Strip down to the bare beauty of your authentic state in this moment and move from there. So I think being authentic and being a leader means that you let people in and you share the good with the bad. Being a leader is incredibly difficult, and when the chips are down, it's nice to show that sometimes. It's nice to show your team that it's not always smooth sailing, because if you let people in like that, it makes you more trusted because you're not putting on a front. Can anyone share with me a leader that they think is particularly authentic? Or, it might be a famous leader, or it might be someone that you've worked with that did something that you thought, yeah, that's really great. Barack Obama, sure, yeah. What made you think he was authentic? What was it about him?
It just comes across as very authentic.
Yeah. that sort of natural, yeah, exactly. Fantastic. So, be authentic. Next, we need clear and concise messaging. The story you're telling must be worth telling, whether that's where the company is going in the next 10 years or why you're making the tough decisions you have to make. Whatever the story, make sure you tell it with light and shade and nuance. Words are your weapons, and sometimes when I work with clients on writing speeches, they get so bogged down in the art of speech writing that they forget that they're actually trying to say something. It's very easy to waffle and, sound grandiose, but it's about getting at the core of what action you want your audience to take. I used to work in politics, and I understand repetition and taglines very well. Don't blame me for Theresa May's strong and stable government. That was slightly before my time. But when you put repetition in your comms and in your speeches, it really makes your audience connect with things. It shows them that those things are really important to you. Because if you say something once, sure, they hear it. But if you say something again, it gives them the chance to synthesize that information and really ponder it over and take it in. And that's what we want our audiences to do. Being clear is also about cutting the BS. I know you can't spell business without BS, but that doesn't mean we have to perpetuate it. A good story is clear, it calls a spade, and people appreciate a no-frills approach. Next, we have presenting with passion. You've got to present with passion. So I work with clients here not only on crafting their content to deliver, but in getting them to deliver it with passion and making sure that they really connect with that audience. And sometimes they focus so much on what they're trying to say and their slides and graphs and goodness knows what, that they forget that how they say it is just as important. It's all about expression. It's about finding moments of light and shade. It's about emphasizing things, making sure things land exactly how you want them to. Often people get scared of expression. They sort of go into this corporate rabbit in the headlights kind of mode, and they can come across a bit monotonous and a little bit flat. And sometimes the content they're presenting isn't exactly the most naturally interesting content. And that's when you've got to work even harder to make sure your audience is engaged and interested. And it's all about expression. I've never, ever had to pull anyone back because their expression has been too much. It's never, never, never too much. People need to be entertained on a certain level. And you have to think of giving a speech or a presentation as somewhat theatrical. Because it is, it's theatre. You're here in the audience, I'm up here on the stage with the lights and the set. So it's theatre, and people love that. And all of the best presenters have something theatrical about them. Nobody wants a presentation that should have been an email. One of the other things that I do here with people is we talk about posture, making sure that we stand nicely on stage, and breathing. Breathing sounds random. We breathe all day. Why would I need help with breathing? But often when people get nervous, the breathing is the first thing that goes. They start breathing really quite shallowly, and their shoulders go up. But we need to breathe down here from our diaphragms. And also, the breath powers the voice. And I know I'm mic'd, and it's not a very big space, but projection, people forget how to project their voices these days because we're so used to having microphones, but microphones don't add any energy to things. They just amplify whatever you give them. So if you give the microphone a mumble, it's just going to make the mumble louder. So I love to help people with articulation and getting right, to the energy of everything, because there are so many little muscles around our mouth that help us articulate that get a bit lazy. I'm Australian, and we're notoriously lazy in our speech. So it's all about getting that energy, getting that expression, using the voice nicely, the breath, standing, it's the whole package. Well, that brings us to the end of the Soapbox session. So we've spoken about passion, we've spoken about telling a good story, we've spoken about being authentic. And it's not always the easiest thing to get those three things in harmony. Sometimes you're better at telling the story, and you're putting on a bit of a mask, though. It's difficult. It's really difficult, and it takes years of practice to be all of those things and to get all of those things right. But, as our old Churchill friend used to say, keep buggering on. Thank you.